better Nigeria? Is it a myth, or do we keep hoping?
Nigeria is a highly religious country. How come corruption thrives?
Why is adoption not encouraged in Nigeria?
Is there a future for the Nigerian youth?
Being rich and famous, is that the only drive to be an artist?
What makes a great nation? Is it the leaders? What about the people?
This is Answers with Dr. Rejo. Hi, my name is Onari. Welcome to Answers with Dr. Rejo, where critical life issues are clarified. With me in the studio today is Obi Brown again, the creator of Study Lab, and the CEO, Maverick Film Department, Henry Sampson, and Dr. Rejo. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
Last week, we explored the concept of wealth, what wealth is, what wealth isn't. We said wealth is not money, but it doesn't exclude money. We talked about materialism and the scourge of it, the fact that it's eating into the minds of people in such a negative way, especially the minds of the youth. We discovered that the term commonwealth is the best way to define the concept of wealth, a situation where you are as wealthy as the next person is wealthy. From last week, we have follow-up questions, and Obi Brown has a question to
Yes, thank you. So, Dr. Rejo, last week, in your definition and explanation of wealth, you included health, well-being, and so many other things. But we know that in our generation, one of the things that we see wealthy people as having is influence. So, what is the place of wealth and influence? Can somebody who has influence be said to also be wealthy? And vice versa.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the whole idea of wealth, it's something that is not something that you have to yourself. It's something that is given away. For instance, even if you take the idea of health, you are healthy, therefore you can serve others. So you can't take out the issue of influence when you're talking about wealth, because a wealthy person naturally becomes like a role model. It becomes like a role model that everybody wants to be, to model themselves after.
Yeah. So
wealth really should be, can be, must be, used to actually for the purpose of influence, and albeit positively. Because you made an example last week about some guys who were spraying money inside a plane or something. Mm-hmm. That's still influence, but negative. So there's no way you can find yourself in the position of wealth automatically you become a person of influence. It's like, in the olden days, you discover that, I don't know if this is going to be something that is general, that a lot of men, especially in very polygamous settings, it's not that those men really have money, but they have wisdom, and their wives look up to them. I am not in any way supporting polygamy. This program is not in any way endorsing polygamy, but I'm just saying that in those days, it is not really cash or what you have in your bank account that makes people look up to you for patterns, but the wisdom that you have. So wealth, really, it actually goes hand in hand with influence. So many times, even if you are endowed with money as part of that wealth, you should be able to use that money to, as a leverage, for influence. So you can't really separate the two. A wealthy person by nature will be influential. It becomes the celeb. It becomes the person everybody wants to model their lives after.
Because we have in our society right now a case where politicians need to keep making money, right? So financial wealth, because they use it to influence their constituencies, to propagate them in office again,
Yeah, that would be negative. That would be negative. I am not one who subscribes to, removing money from politics. You need money to engage in politics. But how you use that money is what makes the difference. So for politicians to have money and use it to buy votes, to make people do what they shouldn't do, that's negative influence.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about influence, let's have the mind stress straight away that we're talking about something positive. Let that be our point of takeoff. Let's agree on that, because once influence is negative, it becomes manipulative, it becomes destructive, and that's no longer influence. So influence should be positive.
So
want to say something?
In other words, true wealth influences positively.
Absolutely. True wealth. And now, every time we qualify things, it makes me sad. Because wealth by nature should be positive. It should, when we now begin to say true wealth, it says, it begins to tell us that
how
we
far
have a
we've
problem.
departed. Yeah.
How far off the mark we are, because wealth is and should be positive.
So if I should refrain, a man who uses financial wealth to keep people in poverty so that he just benefits from them being down there and he's up here is not wealthy.
He's not wealthy. He's not wealthy. Because, like she introduced again today, wealth is only wealth when it's common.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Where do we start, in this society that every young man and young woman is looking for wealth in quote? That's because they want to be on top. They want to drive the best cars, better than the next guy, better than the next lady. Everything they want to do, it's like to outshine the next person.
Differentiate
That's what drives the society.
That leads us to what our agenda today is. Today we continue on the same line of the discourse on wealth, but we are going to be looking at the vital, very vital ingredient, which is work. Must we work to be wealthy?
Absolutely. I mean, without, being very, very simplistic about that, you can't have wealth without work. Health, you need to work out, right? You need to keep fit.
Yes.
And work is ingrained in the human nature by virtue of the way the human being is. The Creator has work in mind when He created the human being. The reason I have 2 hands, I have 2 legs, I have a brain, I have eyes to see, is so that I can walk. Right? So work is critical. It's a vital ingredient if we are going to have a wealthy society. We must have a very sound work culture. So work is critical to wealth. There's no way we can be wealthy financially, health-wise, because we need people to keep us healthy. We need to have a good medical community, and that takes a lot of work.
Do you want to give a specific definition of work? If I ask, what is work?
That's a huge assignment, but since this is answers, we're going to give answer to that. Work can be defined as any productive activity, something that produces something. I would like to borrow the definition of an English scholar called John Stott. He's a preacher. He defined work this way. He said work is any productive activity that serves others and gives fulfillment to the one giving the service, that now benefits community and give glory to God. Work is any productive activity. I mean, we need to underline that. Productive activity is an activity that serves others, right?
Yes.
That gives fulfillment or satisfaction to the worker.
Yes.
And then in turn benefits the generality of society and gives glory to God. That's the way he defined work. And then, one of my professors in school now put a little bit of a spin on that definition. He said, work is any productive activity, whether manual or mental, right? Whether remunerated or not. Right?
I like that.
That's the way he defined. No, the guy's name is Paul Stevens.
Okay.
So he said work is any productive activity, whether manual or mental, whether remunerated or not. So that puts us in a position where we have to see work now, necessarily not in terms of what work pays, but work becoming a habit. Right? Work becoming, like a value system. something that is embraced in society, that is a healthy, wealthy society, becomes a workforce.
I think that begs the question. I must always ask myself, what is my work producing?
Yeah,
right?
Because it must produce.
Honestly.
It must, because without production, this is simple economics. Without production, society stays dormant. In fact, it's not even dormant, it begins to retrogress because value is not being added. There's no growth. So whatever you do, it must be an activity that is productive. A play, right, is productive. Even if you watch a movie, maybe it calms you down, maybe it makes you muse, it makes you think, it makes you sad,
Exactly.
or whatever.
You cry, you go through
It
the
makes
roller
you
coaster of
cry, you go
emotions.
through a process.
Yes.
Whatever we do, first of all, we must see it from the standpoint of, is this productive? Like he just asked, what I'm doing right now, what is it producing?
Yeah.
And if it is productive, again, going back to what Henry said, for it to be productive, it's positive. It adds value, right? It improves, it converts something from a low state to a higher state, to a more refined state. So that's work, really. It's any activity that is productive. So we need to distinguish that from a job.
Okay.
A job is just a task, right? It's a task that you just do and move on to something. But work is wider than just having a job. You can be on a job and you work. So job is a task. Why we need to see work in terms of a value system. Nothing dignifies a human being like work, right? Nothing. And nothing devalues humanity like lack of work.
Or laziness.
Or laziness. I mean, that's a whole lot of concept on its own.
So what's the accurate description of a lazy person?
Is it one and the same when you're idle and when you're lazy?
Okay, idleness is to restrain yourself from working, right? Now, to be lazy is a wider word. I mean, it's wider because when you look at the issue of work, it's really not appropriate for you to be idle. But you see, an idle person, you can look at it in maybe relationship to task. He's not doing anything right now. But a lazy person, again, just as work is a value system, laziness also is a value system. Where for a lazy person, the idea of work wearies him. He wants to get everything on the free. He believes he deserves something without engaging in any productive activity. He has a receiving orientation.
I agree with you, sir, because I'm an entrepreneur. I've dealt with staff and I'm still dealing with them.
Yeah.
I mean, you have these people in your office that they sit down, don't want to do anything outside what is in quote their job description. And even when you give them something to do, it's like that knack for excellence is not there. They just do this thing and just hand it over to you.
Yeah. Like there are some cultures where work is given, and again, I'll take you guys back to where I grew up. I grew up in a village, and you see, work is part and parcel of the culture. It's part and parcel. To have a lazy person, people actually abstain from them. Now in Nigeria, sorry to say, there is a lazy culture where you have statements, narratives like, I want to make it, I want to hit it, I want to hammer. It's a glorious expression of a lazy culture, and there's something that I do. Number one, I don't give money to beggars because I believe there's no reason anybody should be begging. How I wish I have time or the opportunity to sit a beggar down and ask how the person got to that point. You see, if somebody is helpless, I can help. But the help I want to give must not be a one-off help. It must be something that changes the state and the condition of that person. So we have a culture here where people are expecting tips. People are expecting gratification. People are expecting you to reward them for something you can do by yourself. I mean, it's like somebody helping me to carry my bag into the plane. I don't need anybody to do that for me. and that industry, unfortunately, to be able to call it industry, will continue for as long as people patronize it. Because the whole concept of wealth, we have totally missed it. Because people get reward from that when you tip somebody and they look at you and, you derive some satisfaction from that. It's like a status thing. You are cool. So we need to gradually, especially amongst the youth, to begin to value hard, creative, adventurous work.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, imagine somebody who went to school to study business administration, and the first thing the person is doing when he gets out of school is to design the CV. He's supposed to administer a business. He's designing a CV to go work in a bank or whatever to get a peanut at the end of the month.
A job in our society is mostly white collar. When people say, okay, I've graduated from school, now let me go get a job, look for something, you have to wear a tie and a white shirt.
It's a lazy culture.
Yeah, but it's productive. It's just that it produces on somebody else's mental work.
I don't want us to be too narrow about this thing. Some will work for people, right? And you want to make sure that whatever you do, use that John Stott's,
definition.
The definition that as a criteria. Is it productive? Does it serve others?
Yeah.
Do you derive pleasure from it? Do you derive fulfillment from it? Because if you do a survey, I've not done that, intentionally. If you do a survey, most people don't like the work they do. They hate Mondays.
That's true.
Yeah. They don't like the work they do. They're just doing it because that's all they believe is available for them to do. So that dehumanizes.
So can we tie it up with the question that says, is there any kind of work that is beneath
that
someone?
Again, you see, this thing again, we might look at it as a journey.
Okay.
Because there's something they call preoccupation.
Yes, sir.
Right? Preoccupation. That is, you do it preparatory to your real occupation. So when you have a situation where somebody said this work is beneath me, it's also a fruit of that lazy culture. I was working in the bank. I was a manager in the bank. I lost that job in the bank, but I believe that there is no reason for me to be idle. I converted my car to a cab in Lagos. I have a family to feed. I can sit down there and be moaning and be pitying myself and all that, but I looked around me, what can I, because there is no reason why anybody should be workless. There is always something to do. There is always work. There's always work. I converted that car into a taxi, and you see, the lack of proper regulation in our society is an opportunity.
Yes, sir.
It's an opportunity.
Yes.
That's why I say that those who pray, those who wish that things work in Nigeria, they should be careful. When we have a Nigeria that works, many people might not be able to survive it. They might not be able to survive it. So,
that's not saying we don't want a Nigeria that works.
That's not. You know exactly what I'm saying.
Let's just clarify. We're looking forward to a Nigeria that works.
It provides great opportunity. So there must not be any reason why somebody is waiting somewhere. You see, our culture of family ties is very good, but it can be counterproductive. Right? Because there's always an uncle, there's always an auntie who will do something for you, right? Who will do something for you. And that leads to being lethargic, that leads to laziness. You want to help the helpless, but you don't want to reward laziness.
Okay. Dr. Reju, if I work, for instance, in the civil service where there's little or nothing to do, not that there isn't something to do, but we know how it is. If I work in that kind of environment and I really want to be a productive person, how do I turn things around? What do I do?
First of all, I've worked in the ministry before, I worked in the civil service before, and I don't believe that there is nothing to do. It's just people's attitude. Because ministry is supposed to be service to the populace.
Yeah.
As long as there are things that people need from those ministries, it means that there is work to do in those ministries. So the reason we've come to conclude that there is no work in the ministry, in the civil service, is because of the attitude of the people there to work.
Yes, and everybody, if you get a civil service job, like, you're lucky, you will not do anything.
Exactly.
You're lucky, you can go and do
You
other
can
things.
go
You
and
can
do
run your
Exactly.
business.
It's just because of the attitude. I've worked in the ministry. I've worked in the civil service. I remember in 1979, I worked in the National Assembly, in Lagos, and I was in the accounts department. It was busy. I worked in the protocol department. It was busy. So you can't have a ministry, a government parastatal. Before that parastatal is set up, it was because there was a need for it. So we have used the attitude of people to work to now define what obtains there. So let us forget that there's no work in the ministry. There is work there. It's the attitude of people to work. Maybe comparatively, when you look at the work in the ministry of so and a bank, comparatively there might be more, but there's something to do there. So the little that you have to do there, your approach to it, your attitude to that work, you will still be able to serve others, have fulfillment, benefit society.
How do you get inspiration where you get into a place and you see that there's work to be done? You really want to be productive here. Your productivity might infringe on a habit that is already ingrained in the system. It's, you want to explain something to your boss and it will be as if, who is this one? When did you come?
You can only have a bad name for being a workaholic, but it's okay, because the motivational, the switch to be productive is on the inside. Sometimes we don't know that everybody there who is docile, they're just waiting for somebody to just trigger it. And once you get there, you just join them. But if you are self-motivated, because the motivational switch is always on the inside. I don't like to be idle. I don't like to be idle. And it's not that I'm a workaholic, but I don't like being idle. If there's something to do, it must be done. I have a work style that's unique to me because I'm self-employed. But if you work in a place where maybe your boss doesn't really care, but maybe the subordinates or your co-workers doesn't really care, you might actually be in the wrong place, right? And you can take a walk.
Take a walk?
Yeah. You can take a walk. If you are in a place where you can't really make any meaningful change, you might want to take a walk, because you always have a choice. You can, once you see that as, if you believe that this is a challenge in this place and I can make a difference, fine, you want to stay there. But there are some places that they can really wear you out, But we need to first of all, know that anywhere we find ourselves, we can make a difference, and that the issue we have in Nigeria is that we have bad work ethic. It's terrible.
That needs to change.
And that's the reason. Work is so critical, and that's the reason why good governments are praised based on their ability to be able to create an enabling environment for people to work. Right? So if that environment is not there, that government is bad. But in a situation where it is even the government parastatals that actually promote this lethargic attitude to work, then we know we have a serious problem. So it starts with the individual, because nobody will set up a business and approach you with a lethargic attitude, because you've invested something. Yeah. But what belongs to everybody, sometimes they say doesn't belong to anybody. But it takes an individual who understands that the way to wealth is work, and every human being wants to be wealthy. To seek wealth is to negotiate for something that's corrupt. So we can't talk about wealth without talking about work.
Once again, give us that definition of work.
Work. Okay,
let's close with that.
I said work. Is a definition popularized by John Stott, which my professor actually refined. He said it's any productive activity.
That's one.
Productive activity, that serve others.
Okay.
And in serving others, it gives you fulfillment.
Oh yes.
The benefits society, and then give glory to God. It is any productive activity, right? Whether remunerated or not,
Mental.
Either mental, productive activity, whether manual or mental, whether remunerated or not. So work is not what it pays. Because this is a very, very critical point. Work is work when the reward of that work is intrinsic. That is the benefit. Because look at the definition. He serves others, he gives him fulfillment. That's the primary reward of work. The fact that I can work, right? It boosts my ego. It shows up my status. It gives me honor that I have work to do. You see, in societies where they value work, people thank their bosses for creating the environment for them to work. And we do that out of some fake courtesy. Maybe you resign from a place. It's because it's part of, the human consciousness. I want to thank you for the opportunity you've given me to serve in this place. It's a thing of honor to be able to work. So what society must begin to learn, especially the youth. They just want to hammer it. They just want to have and you see, many times religious organizations are not helping. Because they come and they just promise you one magic wand and then you hit it.
So into the Lord's tabernacle you will receive.
It doesn't exist. It's a myth. It's a lie. There is nowhere. It defies every economic principle. It defies it. The only way that guarantees wealth is to have a sound work culture.
We can go on and on, but this is a 30 minutes program and it's been really heated up in the studio today. Thank you, Henry Sampson. Thank you, Obi Brown. Thank you, Dr. Reju. Work will not end in one session. It will go on and on until we clarify, and we give clarity to what work truly is. Give us a call or chat us on WhatsApp on 081-4456-9000. That's 081-4456-9000. Check out our website and interact with us on www.answerswithdrreju.com. Like our Facebook page, Answers with Dr. Reju, or send us an email at answerswithdrreju@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are Dr. Reju Answers. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Answers with Dr. Reju, where you can get all our episodes. Join us again on Answers with Dr. Reju, where critical life issues are clarified.